Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Kings of War Battle Report. I'm Visibly Riley, and this week we have Goblins vs Twilight Kin in a 2300 point battle of Plunder. First up, we have my opponent's Twilight Kin army. It opens with 2 regiments of Twilight Glade Stalkers, followed by 2 regiments of Crone-bound Abyssal Horsemen, one of whom with the J-Boots, the other with the Potion of the Caterpillar. Then we have 2 Crone-bound Shadowhulks, followed by Mikael, Lord of Nightmares. Then Lathael Bleakheart, the new named Summoner Crone, and finally the crew of the Black Hydra, the new formation for Twilight Kin, which involves a regiment and 2 troops of Blade Dancers, followed by a named Soulbane Lay's Potato Chip, who in this case my opponent has given the Gnome Glass Shield. So let's go through some of those new units just so we have some context, starting with Lathael Bleakheart. It's really important that you know this. If you're going to play against Twilight Kin anytime soon against a competent opponent, you're probably going to see her. She's really good. Starting off, she is a basic Summoner Crone, so speed 6, melee 5, def 4, all that stuff, 1 attack. But she comes with 13-15 nerve, which is excellent for 165. Then for her basic spells, she has Drain Life 7 and Fireball 10. Keep in mind that Fireball now comes with Shattering as well, but Drain Life 7 is very high in today's world. For special rules, she has the Wicked Miasma rule, as all Summoner Crones do, so she can heal Crone-bound units from farther away. Then she has Individual Inspiring, and finally Aura Stealthy, which is quite tasty. Finally, we have her unique rule, which is the Eye of Valak, which at the start of each friendly ranged phase, if Lathael is not disordered, she may select an enemy unit within 12 inches regardless of line of sight. This unit loses Stealthy and Spell Ward until the end of the turn. All spells targeting this unit may reroll all natural unmodified to hit rolls of a 1 until the end of the turn. So that is very, very powerful. So it essentially makes all the Summoner Crones back into an Archmage, so they went back to school, got their masters in it, in spellcasting, spell slinging, so they can reroll those unmodified 1s to hit. But more importantly, it strips you of your Stealthy and your Spell Ward, so you can really, really do some nasty stuff with this, on top of the fact that she comes with that Aura Stealthy. I will say this real quick before I get into the formation. You know what? Actually, let's get into the formation. So we have the crew of the Black Hydra. When this was originally previewed, I remember a lot of people on Fanatics, especially playtesters, talking about how good it was, right? And how we just didn't see it. And I made the point, which, a lot of people I think saw, or agreed with, right? That was, we can only make assumptions or be as excited about something as the information we know about it. In this case, we knew what the crew of the Black Hydra was. We knew what Blade Dancers did, kinda. We knew that Lay's Potato Chip here was a cool Soulbane, right? But we didn't know that you were going to get this Aura Stealthy modifier on Lathael Bleakheart, which I think really completes the package of the Black Hydra, on top of stuff like Barkskin if you want. So anyway, getting into the formation itself, so all units in this formation gain the keyword Soulless Shards and the Wild Charge 1 rules, while Lay's gains Rally 1 for all the units in it, of course, lowers their defense to 4, and increases their speed and attack count to 7. They can't take a mount, of course, but that's really good, especially with the new Gnome Glass Shield, which is a magic item that says you're +2 defense until the first time you suffer a wound, meaning that unless you're attacked by multiple units in a close combat, the first combat you're in, or the first time you're shot at, or whatever, you're going to be def 6 for that, which is super important for their next rule, Enraged. In addition to their basic attacks, each unit in this formation gains a number of additional attacks equal to their current points of damage. So on Lay's Potato Chip, that's really good. It's going to give you, like let's say you get charged in by, something, you're def 6, so maybe you'll do 2 or 3 wounds because you're an individual. It's hard to actually get something that like a larger unit into you. You survive it, so you're going to get +2 to 3 attacks for that round, right? So that's really cool, on top of course, the Blade Dancers, who have 15 and 20 attacks themselves. Now, with the rally bubble going on, their nerve is a little higher. I think they're base 13 for the troop and 16 for the regiment, I want to say. So they're going to go to 14 and 17, or if they're 14, it's like, 15 and 18, or 15 and 18, which would be really good. So I think that it's 14 and 17, and that's not great for a def 3 unit, even if it is fearless. But with the stealthy rule, it means that you're probably not going to eat that on the way in. meaning that you're at least going to get 1 round of combat, and it makes it so small arm fire that's not gonna, be dedicated, not gonna be like a lot of shots into you, or, like a real units combat. So something like gargoyles charging you to strip you of your thunderous isn't going to kill you. In fact, it's gonna power you up. So I really like this formation. It's one of my favorite ones in the book, even if I think that maybe it's not the best, like competitively speaking, but it is really interesting, and that's all I really ask from the new rules, is that they're interesting, that they do something new, which this does in spades. So with that out of the way, let's get into the goblins. In my goblin list, we start with 3 hordes of rabble and a regiment of rabble. Then we have 2 troops of fleabag riders, followed by 3 war trombones. Then we have 2 big rocks throwers, 2 wingets, both of whom take the bombs away, which is wingets did get a bit of a nerf. I know in the Clash pack they're like no nerfs, but that's just marketing. There's definitely nerfs in this. They're just few and far between. So wingets now can choose to maintain that 13-15 nerf if they want, and lose all their ranged attacks and be a little melee beast. So they gain 5 attacks, they're vicious melee, and they have Thunder 1. Or they can retain their bombs, which are excellent, and the Eye in the Sky rule, but they're going to drop down to 11-13 nerf. So pretty big nerf there, but I still think they're pretty good. So anyway, I took the bombs on both my wingets today. Then I have a Goblin Slasher with the Aura Rampage melee D3 for beasts only. I will just make a admission right here. In this game, I assumed that Kings on Fleabags gained the beast keyword. I don't know why that was, but it's because Fleabags themselves have beast. So I just made that mistake this game, just so you know. So yeah, the Fleabag Riders all get that bonus, so that's pretty cool on top of the Slasher itself. Then we have the King with the Groany Snark upgrade, which is very strong. I don't think I go into it in my little picture here, so I'll just talk about it here, which is Groany Snark is an insanely powerful upgrade. Wings of the Honey Maze, for reference, is 40 points, gives you speed 10 fly and -1 defense. This does all of that, only no -1 defense. It gives you +2 thunderous charge. It gives you this little thing where if you don't declare a counter charge as your movement, so if you charge, if you advance, if you do whatever, you roll a die, and on a 1 you do a wound to all units within 6 inches of you. So it's like quasi Cloak of Death that also hits your goblin units, so not that big of a deal if you're good at positioning. And lastly, you gain Blast D3 for everything, so you're just Blast D3. So it's an insanely powerful upgrade, really good, and pretty fun to play with, I think. The only downside to it is you can't take a magical artifact, but you can take Jarrett's Pendant, so you can give yourself Headstrong as an aura if you want. So moving on, I brought a Wiz with the Crown of the Wizard King, Knowledgeable, so +1 spellcaster, and then Host Shadow Beast 8. So I can cast a spell up to 8 dice, okay, so let's go through this whole thing real quick. Crown of the Wizard King gives me +6 inches on Giggity on spellcasts that are friendly, so for Host Shadow Beast in this case. And then it Host Shadow Beast gives you +N equal to the amount of hits you got on a friendly individual in close combat. So I can give up to +8 attacks to any of my individuals if I want, which is important once I get through them. So I have Grupp and Longnail as my next unit, and then I brought one of my other favorite formations in the game, Gorp's Explodomatic Bang Sticks. It involves 2 regiments of Fleabag Riders, both of whom in this case I gave Mob Pups, and then I gave one the Helm with the Drunken Ram, and the other the J-Boots. And finally, it gives you a King on Fleabag, who is Gorp himself, with in this case I gave the Scythe of the Harvester, so an additional +D3 Rampage. So it's really good here to have that Host Shadow Beast, which you might have noticed I have 3 individuals that are not my wizard, and all of them have an additional way to gain extra attacks on their hits. So each Host Shadow Beast hit actually turns into more hits if I actually get that. So Grupp Longnail is Blast D3 as well, on top of being Duelist, and the formation, which I'll go over through right here from Gorp, gives you some unique rules. So first off, it gives Gorp himself the Aura Elite Melee Cavalry with the Goblin keyword. That's quite the mouthful, but it's essentially Fleabag Riders. Special rule, I'll tell you right now, I forgot about this the entire game. But it also gives the Bang Sticks, so the 2 regiments of Fleabag Riders, Thunderous Charge 2 instead of 1. So really good damage increase there for not a lot of points. And it also gives a fun rule. So whenever a unit in this formation rolls a natural unmodified 6 to hit in melee, resolve that hit with the Blast 2 special rule. So really good. So every 6 you roll explodes into 2 hits. But in addition, for each 6 rolled, the attacking unit receives a point of damage as the Bang Stick backfires on the unlucky goblin wielding it. No nerve tests, of course, are taken for damage taken in this way. But that means that I get a bonus hit every time I roll a 6 to hit with any of these units in melee, of course. And I'll take a little damage, but they're goblins, who cares? It really ups their damage output. One of my units has Thunderous Charge 3 due to the helm. One has the J-Boots. So the Mob Pups, unfortunately, I found out there's a bit of a snafu. I mean, I could have just read my rulebook, right? But I believe I read the easy army, and it was a little confusing there. But Mob Pups specifically call out that you do not use any special rule in the unit, meaning you don't get this blast ability. Obviously, you don't get the Thunder Charge, although that doesn't really read that way anyway. The big thing is that it doesn't turn into Blast 2. But I will admit that we also played it wrong this way, and I will say, about this, I've said a lot of things that I played wrong in this game, but I did talk about it with my opponent each time, and we came to these conclusions. So anyway, those are some of the pitfalls I don't want you guys falling for this very cool, very fun formation. So moving on to the scenario itself, we have Plunder. So Plunder, before rolling off to choose sides, you place 5 loot counters on the center line of the board. 1 must be placed in the exact center of the board, or as close as possible. The remaining 4 then placed along the center line 12 inches away from each other, or as close as possible. And then after choosing sides, starting with the player that chose their side first, each player nominates a different loot counter to be worth 2 victory points. These 2 counters are referred to as primary loot counters. You get victory points as follows: 1 VP for each loot counter you hold, or 2 VP if it's a primary loot counter. So a pretty simple one. I actually kind of like Plunder because Plunder is a scenario with a lot of changing of hands with the loot counters, which I think loot counters are a lot better. You all know my thoughts on dynamic scoring at this point, which is the game would be a lot better if you scored stuff at the end of the game. But at least loot counters sort of push that ideal anyway. It makes you head towards the center anyway. And secondly, I don't really like scenarios where I have to set up tokens all over the table. I like scenarios with setup spots, like very determined spots, which Plunder kind of splits in the middle there, which is you technically set them out, but there isn't a lot of space to set them out, so you can force something a little weird, but otherwise it's pretty normal down the middle with 12 inches between each one. So anyway, that's going to do it for Plunder. Let's get looking at that table. So first off, we played at a friend of mine's place who graciously let us hang out in his garage. Obviously, you'll see that a lot of his terrain is not done yet, as you might see with this piece right here, but he is working on it. So in the meantime, we just used my terrain. So first off, we have 2 height 9 forests on each side. Then we have 1 height 3 hill in the center of the table. It is not the whole of this cardboard cutout that's down here. That was just on the table before. It's just the hill. Then we have a couple. We have 1, 2, 3 height 2 obstacles, 1 being in an L shape, followed by 2 height flat pieces of terrain, 1 in each deployment zone. And then we have a height 7 blocking terrain. I'm just going to go with impassable because it sounds better. To the right of the picture, and then 1 height 9 blocking terrain over here. Actually, we have a second one down here. This one is height 5, which I forgot to mention. But anyway, so some blocking terrain over there. Let's go through deployment, starting with my opponent's army in the upper left here. So first off, we have both the troops of the Blade Dancers along with the regiment and Lathael back here, just giving Aura Stealthy to all these units, and Leia's Potato Chip just hanging out with that Gnome Glass Shield, also giving Rally to all these units. So it's a really, really cool bubble here, really fun. I will mention before I continue, one of my true loves in Warhammer was Dark Elves. I had an army for a long time, starting in that that weird book where Gav Thorpe rewrote it, and it gave people heavy armor, if you're aware of that, back in 6th ed. So I love them, and I love these models. Like this Cutlass Peg Leg, I think is really fun. So I can't wait to see this army painted. To the right of that, we have the 1st Regiment of Abyssal Cav hanging out in some rough terrain with the Caterpillar Potion. To the right of that, we have this gorgeous Charybdis model that is the Shadow Hulk. To the right of that, we have Mikhail. Then we have both the Gladestalker regiments kind of taking the right flank with a split flank approach, and the final Shadow Hulk. And finally, we have some Abyssal Cavalry with the J-Boots just hanging out on their own. So they are not inspired, they're just, hanging out in that corner. And set up opposite of them, we of course have a bunch of goblins. So first off, we have the 1-2 Fleabag Rider regiments. The left one has the Helm of the Ram. You can't really see it, but it's a little spider totem. Then we have the J-Boots over here. Behind them, we have both the troops of Fleabag Riders. And then we have Gorp with the Scythe and a mount, and the Goblin Slasher. I don't believe maybe it's in the next picture, but this is one of my my big rocks throwers. Yes, I did mark that. So I have both the big rocks throwers just chilling out over here. If you ever see the weird little squig models here, those are just marking my mob pups, right? So I don't forget them. They're just a token. We have the 1st and the 2nd War Trombone. Then we have the 3rd War Trombone right here. We have the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Rabble Horde chilling out. We have Grupp right between them, and then the Wiz with a million special rules here. So the Crown of the Wizard King, the Host Shadow Beast 8 is what that turns into. Then we have Grony right here, so Grony Snark. Of course, this is a play off of Tony Stark, Iron Man himself. I look at that and I go, come on, guys, right? Like the Green Goblin's right there. You could have been like, I don't know, Gronin Gobsporn, right? Instead of Norman Osborn, you could have done a lot of stuff. Bugs me a little bit, but still pretty cool. Like, pumpkin bombs, and it would have been really funny to see a goblin dressed as a goblin. And to the right of that, we have the Rabble Regiment. Off here in the Little Woods on their own, we have both the Wingets just chilling out, made out of the old gyrocopters. So that's going to do it for the deployment. Let's take a look at the finished deployment and where the tokens ended up. So we have 1, 2, 3 1s, right? And then my opponent chose the 2 to be on the hill, and I chose the 2 to be to the right of that because I plan to just sort of swarm this area. Although, I don't know, in hindsight, I could have chosen one over here, but I didn't want my opponent to put Cav there because I didn't really want to try to fight it with Wingets. So in the end, it's fine with me. Now, you might notice, for the keen-eyed of you, that, yes, all of my goblins are in fact painted. So I filmed this report on a Friday, and on a Monday, I was like, I think I can't do my Ratkin in time for a tournament that's in a couple weeks now. It's on the 11th of December. So I was like, I don't think I can get my Ratkin done in time. I need to do an army that's a little easier, a little faster. And I went through, a bunch of army lists, ideas of my updated armies. I mean, the ogres might be cool too. But in the end, I decided, I bet I could get a goblin army done quickly, right? I had 40 goblins done before, right? So that's these guys and Grupp. And I was like, I could just power through it. So on that Monday, I started rooting through a garage to get all the models together. And in 3 days' time, I had all of this done. So I'm really proud of that. It's not quite done yet, right? Like I want to put down some additional stuff on the bases, and I want to do some water effects to make them look a little swampier, and of course block out these edges like I do with some black plastic art. But I'm really proud of what I was able to accomplish because they are done. I'm pretty happy with them. There are some broken points here. That's because there are 3 bases that I forgot to put the magnets in because they're also all magnetized before I put down the basing material. So I had to drill it later. Let that be a lesson to you folks. Do it beforehand. So they've got the magnets in them now. I'm just gonna do some quick paint touch-ups, and then that'll be part of my my additional flocking right later. But yeah, I really like this army. It's pretty cool, and right now I can just, if I want to, or if I find any more goblins, I can just start gluing them down. And I could have got all the other basing done in time, but I actually ran out of super glue. So that was pretty funny. So anyway, yeah, I'm really happy with that, and it just goes to show you that whenever you say I don't have any painted models, it's definitely by choice. I could do it quickly if I wanted. So anyway, we've got both the Gladestalkers. You can see here, this is their scout move forward, and that is going to be a little bit difficult for me to deal with, which you might notice in turn 1. So turn 1 ends up going to the Twilight Kin, and they advance forward, as you might see. This Blade Dancer troop picks up the token, the 1-pointer there, and the rest just sort of take this hill. Over here on the right, the Gladestalkers, of course, sit still because the Twilight Kin Gladestalkers do not have steady aim anymore, so they have to just sit there. MacLeod just moves forward to get that Inspire bubble. Oof. And then these guys just sort of chill out. I don't know. I don't remember if these Cav move forward in the end. They might just be holding back to make sure that the Fleabag Riders don't just run into them, which is fair because Fleabag Riders are nimble speed 10, and mine do a lot of damage. So I think this is a fair idea. I will say this though, I kind of forgot that Gladestalkers have Scout at the beginning of this game, and I was just I was a little out of it after doing a bunch of work on top of painting this army up. I also just had a ton of work last week, so I was a little groggy, which I'm going to use as my excuse for all these mistakes. But kind of forgot that they had advanced deploy, and then once they're up here, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to lose one of these Goblin units. They are not difficult to kill, even though they just received +1/+1 nerve across the board on their Fleabag Riders. So. Hopefully we'll have to see what my opponent's dice do, but I definitely should have deployed my chaff in front of them. Generally I don't, because I don't want to get it deleted turn 1. But in this case, at least this unit should have a chaff unit in front of it to protect it from shooting. So anyway, let's see what happens. My opponent takes aim and does shoot at the juiciest target. A good allocation there, which is slaps 9 damage onto them. They're, I believe, a 13-15 nerve, so not the hardest kill, although it is twice, so it's around a 30% chance. So let's see how that goes. Ends up with a waiver. I count that lucky for me. Just, oof, really dodged a bullet there. I guess I didn't dodge any bullets. And here is the end of turn shot. As you can see, that was the only bit of shooting because Lathael is really short range on her spells. So yeah, the Twilight Kin take the center pretty quickly here, although they only picked up 1 loot counter, which is an interesting choice, I think. But let's see what the Goblins do with their turn 1. So Goblin turn 1, I move forward with the Wingets. This one just sort of spins around in the woods because why not? And it's going to shoot at this unit of Blade Dancers. I also take Groany Snark and decide it's time to do the stress testing. I send her into my my opponent's Lay's Potato Chip. Excuse me. And I'm going to cast Host Shadow Beast, which is why I have this little gap here. I just needed to get this off, but it does allow this unit to get a flank charge if I don't kill it. Now, this is kind of important because this is not a great charge. I was just so excited to see if Groany could really just start plastering people real early with this Host Shadow Beast move that I decided to hold back and not protect this flank because I'm like, I can probably kill this off with 2 Wingets. I mean, it is not high nerve, right? And they're defense 3. But I also forgot, again, that Lathael gives that stealthy. So this is a rough idea. So anyway, the other units just advance forward. It might look like I'm in contact with that, but I'm not. I'm an inch away. Just a little bit of an optical illusion. And right here in the center, yeah, I just move forward with this horde because I'm going to shoot everything I have into this unit of Abyssal Horsemen who are 50% on the hill, so they're not even getting cover. And then, of course, I've got the big rocks throwers as well, and I have at least 1 Winget there to mark them, so I'll get elite right there. And then in the charges, I pop the J-Boots on my unit that was in the difficult terrain. I charge forward into 1 unit of Gladestalkers, and then I send both the troops into these guys. So 1 into this Gladestalker and 1 just to hold up this Shadow Beast a little bit. And then I advance forward with this Slasher. And yeah, oh, I also sent Gorp into this unit as well, so with the J-Boots just to kill them off, because yeah, being speed 10 means I can just crab walk, or I guess in this case spider walk, 5 inches to the side and then pivot because I'm nimble. So I'm still ready to fight if someone gets over here like the Cav, right? So that's the plan. I do make a slight error here, which is the Slasher when it runs forward. It probably could have just backed up a little bit and stayed within 6 of this unit because, again, Gorp does not get the bonus because not a beast, and I don't really care if these guys do anything. These guys a bit more just because the Rampage would be good. Of course, Rampage is the new rule that gives you plus N attacks against swarms, infantry, heavy infantry, and cavalry. So plus D3 in this case. But I'm just looking for a disorder there. So I probably should have held this guy back a little bit. MacLeod can easily charge the slasher. I'm not really worried about that. But this can easily flank charge there. And that's super bad. So yeah, bit of a mistake. And over here we start the shooting. So both the wingets fire into my opponent's troop. I do 6 damage to it. I believe that's going to be a 7 to kill it twice. I do not hit the 25%, but Grony, on the other hand, I don't know if we see the die. No. So Grony got plus 4 attacks from that Host Shadow Beast. So Grony is up to, I believe, 9 attacks then. Hitting on 4s, of course, but hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, even with the defense 6 from the Gnome Shield. But it's Blast D3, so I do a ton of damage there and just walk right through Lays. Crunch him like the potato chip he is, and then I'd overrun a little bit just to get out of the charge arcs here. Although Lothael's right here to get a big drain on me, so we'll have to see. And here we go in the other combats. Yeah, I do manage to delete the center unit of Gladestalkers with the combined charge of Gorp and this regiment. Gorp falls back to not be able to be charged, which is fair enough for him. And then I do 1 point of damage to the Shadow Beast. That doesn't do a whole lot, but then I do 1 point of damage to these Gladestalkers to make sure they cannot shoot. So that's going to be the end of turn 1 in totality. The Goblins did not pick up any loot counters, nor did I take them away. So technically the Twilight Kin are winning, but I did remove 2 units right here. So I'm feeling pretty good about that, except for, again, my weird positioning failure. But let's see if the Twilight Kin can capitalize on it in turn 2. So Twilight Kin turn 2, we've got the left side. Yeah, this unit, I thought this would be an easy flank charge, right? But I guess my opponent is right here just because these units have so many attacks, right? That's 35 attacks into the front of this horde. They are inspired right now, assuming Grony doesn't die. But that's 35 attacks on 3s. So that's gonna, on average, we're looking at like 22-ish hits with a lead. You're gonna get another 3, so let's put it like 25 hits. And then you wound me on 3s, right? So you do like 18 wounds, and I'm like, oh, I'm a 1921, right? So yeah, this charge right into the front is perfect because of course I gave them plus 6 attacks. So this unit also has 21 attacks and still has Thunderous. So I'm feeling real good about my decisions here. So anyway, off to the right, MacLeod decides to take the flank charge. I guess my opponent also didn't trust those dice, and then takes the flank here into my slasher. Now, this I look at, and I'm like, MacLeod must have been in the front, right? Because I did back up with this unit to help protect the slasher, because MacLeod, of course, gets double the attacks against monsters or titans, right? So, like, that would have been an easy charge for Mickey. So, yeah, I assume that it must have ended up being in the front and then gone for this flank instead. Although, as well, I probably would have gone for this cav unit because that would have definitely been a flank charge. Although, no, it can't no, because it could, I don't know. We'd have to go back a bunch of pictures, but I believe Mickey could see me by individual pivoting like this, looking at them over their own unit. Although, no, there's the forest here. Oh, I guess they can't because I walked out of the forest. So we solved the mystery. That's why Mickey's over there, which is a kind of a weird charge. So anyway, we've got the Gladestalkers charging into the front of my Fleabag Rider troop, and then the Fleabag Rider troop eating Abyssal Cav and the Shadow Hulk there. So that's fair. And over here just showing up. Oh, I forgot to mention this. That whole time I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to mark and then fire all my war trombones. I guess I didn't grab a picture of it. We did have a lot of children as well, having a good time showing me their very nice guinea pigs, but I get distracted really easily, so sometimes I miss the pictures. So anyway, yeah, I did manage to kill off that Abyssal Cav regiment with all of my shooting, so I actually deleted 3 units. So over here in the combats, yeah, we're just showing off that Lothael's going to take aim and shoot at Grony. She fires her fireball into me, does 5 wounds, which is a lot, even with the reroll 1s, right? because she's only Fireball 10, so that's a little under double the amount of wounds I was expecting to see. And of course, Grony has pretty poor, pretty poor nerve at 12-14. So with that Shatter turns into a 6. My opponent rolls at least a 6 and gets that waiver. So yeah, Grony's just gonna have to sit there, I guess. And right here, yeah, this unit pumps right through my regiment, dealing 11 damage to me. And then the Horde, of course, is just completely wiped out. My opponent turns to face towards Grony with this regiment. That's an interesting choice. I guess the Wingets are over there, but they can always just fly off. And Grony is wavered. So, interesting. And then these guys just face toward, and MacLeod just reforms, as you can see, to protect this troop, I believe, from my Horde of rabble, which is fair. And over here, my opponent's luck does not hold out, though, although not particularly lucky, except for that Grony bit. But they did roll really high. So they deal 7 damage to me with the Gladestalkers, which is fair enough, but only get a waiver. I believe this is a 10-12 troop, so an unfortunate roll for my opponent. And to add insult to injury, you can see my opponent does, actually, if we go back a picture, that 7 right there is because, yeah, I did 7 wounds to myself with those exploding lances, so that's funny. And over here, my opponent, yeah, did not roll very well because the Charybdis, I'm sorry, the Shadow Hulk has Slayer D3. So it gets plus D3 attacks, and then it has 6 plus D6 attacks natively. My opponent rolls a 1 and a 1 for both of them, because of course you do when you get a flank charge, and only manages 7 wounds on me. So not only am I not dead, I'm also just not even wavered, right? Like I can just countercharge in there if I want. So that's going to do it there. And of course, yeah, these guys just completely destroy that troop. And then the Abyssal Cav, I believe, just turned because the troop was right here. So they just turn, like you can see, and then the Shadow Hulk runs forward and stops at Gorp. So that's going to do it for turn 2 for the Twilight Kin. They are still, again, technically winning, although they did make a comeback here because they deleted that horde of rabble there, the regiment of rabble. They wavered Grony, they wavered this, and then they killed that troop. So they've killed just as many units as I have, but I do have a few more units than they do. So let's see what the Goblins can do with those units in turn 2. So Goblin turn 2, first off, yeah, I just take one of my Wingets and go, I'm not going to be in this game, am I? And I just go grab the loot token. The other Winget just comes around here to do some shooting. And I do take Grupp here and charge into the front of this unit. Now, this is another, I'm not sure it was a mistake, but it definitely wasn't a great idea, because if we go back a picture, you can see where Grupp is here, but MacLeod is large enough that both of these, both my Horde of Rabble and Grupp can see him. So I could have just turned Grupp with the individual. No, maybe I can't, right? I'm nimble, so like I turn this way normally, go forward, like go over here, and then yeah, I can just nimble pivot here and hit the corner. So yes, so I could have just combo charged here, and I think that would have been really smart, but I did temporarily forget that Grupp has Duelist. So instead I send Grupp into the injured troop, which in fairness I do need to get rid of, so we're going to try to do that. And then I move the Wizard or the Wiz to, of course, host Shadow Beast there. The Horde charges into MacLeod, which is a little awkward just because Mickey, they're in the flank, but they move forward, they turn just enough to hit this front corner, which is in the flank, then Mickey, of course, reforms to me, and then I slide to his center, so it's just a little weird there. All the War Trombones move forward to fire at this troop right here, which is why I said, yeah, Grupp really didn't need to do this, because I could have fired the Winget. I believe the other Winget's still within 12, and of course I have at least one War Trombone that I could use. But whatever. I keep this Horde in reserve, of course, and off here on the right, things are a little interesting as well. The wavered unit just remains engaged, because why not? I then have my J-Boots unit charge into the flank of this Shadow Hulk that's, you know, kind of my opponents. They're like, I'm not really worried about that, because into the flank of the Shadow Hulk, it's going to be hindered. You're only Thunder 1, you hit on 5s. It is 28 attacks on 5s with exploding 6s, but it's still only Thunder 1, so 4's a wound, 5's a hit, 4's a wound. I'm going to take Gorp into the front here, which is, you know, I'm not going to benefit from any of my additional abilities, and just hope I can hold them out, because I am mighty, so I need to make sure that they can't walk past me after I probably fail to kill them there. Then I have the Slasher charge into this Shadow Hulk. It does have 10 attacks now, hitting on 3s, so 3s and 3s, which, you know, it might be able to do some real damage there, but we'll have to wait and see. And then, yeah, I have a 20-inch nimble charge into the Abyssal Cav. This is the one I'm looking at and going, I could probably do this, right? Because this is the Thunder 3 unit. So it has 14 plus D3 attacks, right? That hit on 4s and wound on 2s with exploding 6s, and then a mop up for an additional 8 dice on 4s, wounding on 4s. So looking forward to seeing what that can do. I need to get a kill there because they are Abyssal Cav, right? So they have Fury. So I'm hoping just to be able to one-shot them. But we'll see, right? It's a bunch of random goblin nonsense. So yes, in the combat, I do manage to kill off that Abyssal Cav. I do an insane amount of damage there, but I only rolled 3 6s. So pretty good for me because I don't dial this up anymore. And then right here, this unit I believe is up to 8 for the Shadow Hulk. With the flank charge and the front charge from Gorp. So still ready to rock. And here's the end of turn shot. Again, a little distracted. You could actually see one of the kids' arms in one of those pictures. So yeah, I did go in here. I got this Shadow Hulk up to 6 wounds, which is, it's all right. I did manage to delete that troop. I did 4 wounds to Mikael, and then I deleted this troop as well. So yeah, I really wish I had sent Grupp there, especially knowing hindsight, because Grupp got 5 extra attacks, right, from that host Shadow Beast. So that would have been 18 attacks on Mikael, hitting on 3s, hitting on 3s with Blast D3, and then wounding on 4s with an additional 4 wounds from the Horde. So, just feels bad when you do that, right? So anyway, I do manage those kills though, so we'll have to see. And you can see Grupp here, or not, that's not Grupp, that's Grony, did blow up and deal 1 damage here. So yeah, just giving them an extra attack, because why not? And then moved out of their line of sight. So let's see what turn 3 holds for the Twilight Kin. So Twilight Kin, we're going to start with, we have a Mikael charge into Grupp. Of course, Grupp does have Ensnare. I'm not sure it's going to save me though, because that's a lot of attacks. I think it's, 7 or 8 attacks base on Mickey. So like 16 attacks on 3s with Elite, and then on 2s to wound. I'm only at dash 12. Probably not long for this world. Then we have Lothael lining up a shot again. The regiment turning towards me. This is especially bad because I also allowed an overrun into my... man, I am blanking. Into the Winged, right? And I'm like, oh, feeling real stupid now about Grupp. But you do what you do. So anyway, that's what's going on the left. And on the right, yeah, it's still kind of a parking lot here. So we have the Gladestalkers again going into the severely wounded troop. We have the big ol' Shadow Hulk going into the somewhat wounded Slasher. We have the other Shadow Hulk going into my, again, somewhat wounded regiment with the J-Boots. And that's going to do it. So we'll have to see if I can hold up. Goblins aren't the most hardy. We mostly rely on luck to not die. So anyway, we've got Lothael first. She fires a fireball, and as luck will have it, only manages 3 wounds this time, which is pretty fair, I think. So it's right around average, but does get a waiver because, again, it's 9, so I'm a 12-14 with the Shattered. So yeah, it's another waiver. I'm just gonna have to sit here. At least Grony killed Leia's potato chip before all this happened, so I got some play out of it. And right here, yeah, my opponent gets another waiver, which is unfortunate for them, knocking the Slasher up to 14 wounds. They are 16-18, so I believe this is the second 3 my opponent has rolled this turn. 1 over here on Grony, right? Because with the Shatter, that's a 3 to get a waiver, so that's a lucky 3. And over here is a pretty bad 3 because it only waivers this big monster, which with its new aura at least impacts the battlefield even when it is wavered. And up here, yeah, so Mikael walks right through Grupp like she's nothing, and then walks right through that Winged, and I'm like, well, I feel extra dumb now. Yeah, right there's the Winged. And here's the end of the turn. So the Gladestalkers walk through their troop, and the Shadow Beast kills off that regiment of Fleabag Riders. So yeah, 1 regiment of Fleabag Riders dead there, 1 troop dead there, 1 Grupp and 1 Winged killed this turn, but otherwise I'm still here. Thankfully, Goblins bring a lot of bodies to help deal with all this. So let's see what they can do with Goblin turn 3. So Goblin turn 3, I have just been backing away. I'm just gonna back off with the Winged here. I back out just a little bit, I want to say. I think I'm almost 20 inches away because MacLeod can, of course, charge 18. So I need to stay the hell away from them because they'll walk right through a Winged, especially at 11-13 nerve. I turn this horde to face towards Mickey, but more, prudently towards the regiment of Blade Dancers because they'll charge into me and do some serious damage. I run with my horde here to pick up the first 2 because I'm out of the line of sight of this regiment, so it would be just Mickey if they want to charge. You can see all the War Trombones turn to face a new threat to the left, and of course Groany just groans off, right? So yeah, this is the threat that my War Trombones have turned towards, which is of course this wounded Shadow Hulk. I disengage with the Slasher first. I take Gorp and charge into the flank of the Glade Stalkers. My plan is just to turn off their shooting again, because I also take the front charge here. This unit is at, was it at 9 wounds before? I thought it was at 8. One of these dice must have been pushed a little bit, but it's at 8 wounds already, and I do hit on 4s, wound on 2s with exploding 6s, so pretty sure I can get through them. So that's going to be the plan, and let's see how it all goes. So first off, we have the War Trombones. I do also, just a second, I do also have these big rock throwers, but they are within 12 each, so they just have no shots. I think I might have messed around with their movement this turn. And then, of course, I have this Wizard getting ready to, I believe, slap some lightning bolts around. That's probably what it's going to do. So yeah, we've got all 3 War Trombones. I fire into the Shadow Hulk. I believe I also fired the Wizard, who missed with all 3 of their lightning bolts, so woohoo. I get him up to 10 wounds. It's an 8 to kill it, and I rolled an 11. So that's some good luck there. And here's the end of this whole flank in general. So that Shadow Hulk gets shot off. This Shadow Hulk gets punched to death. This unit's up to, I believe, 15 wounds now, so dealt 6 to itself. And then we have Gorp going into the flank, dealing 2 wounds, so disordering this unit of Glade Stalkers, but not getting a waiver, so that's really good still, obviously. And here is the end of turn shot. As you can see, I did nothing else. Yeah, I did nothing over here. I don't have any shooting or damage, really. So yeah, I managed to kill off both the Shadow Hulks, which feels really good. I got that disorder there, which is also pretty good. And I'm just going to have to bear the brunt of MacLeod's rage here on turn 4. So Twilight Kin turn 4. Of course, Mickey and this regiment of Blade Dancers go into my horde of rabble. I'm hoping I can hold against this, but again, that's a lot of damage coming in, and I'm not inspired by anything, so we'll have to see. This little horde here, Lathael, I think, should probably be shooting there, but I can understand the idea of getting rid of Groany, because Groany's just, if Groany is not wavered on a turn, she's just so dangerous. Because keep in mind, she also has a short bow that hits on 4s, right? And the blast affects that too. So she's really strong, and I can respect Lathael deciding to just kill her off, right? And over here, you can see we have the Glade Stalkers taking the front charge into my Slasher, looking to finally kill that off, but it might be a little too late, right? But still, it's removing a scoring unit, which is always important. And over here, we have Lathael taking aim onto Groany and getting her to 10 wounds. And this is another waiver. So I believe here we forgot the Shatter, right? Or... oh no, I remember it. I think I've got it, which is my opponent fired the Drain Life this turn, right? Tried to get a bit of value out and only got her to 10, right? And then, Drain doesn't have Shatter, so rolls a 3 there and gets a waiver, which is the only result that will do this. So Groany's wavered for a 3rd turn in a row, and I thought that first 5 was pretty unlucky, but the rest of these have been amazing because I took out Lay's Potato Chip, and I've been occupying Lathael the entire game, so really good stuff there, Groany. And over here, yeah, the Slasher gets completely destroyed by the Glade Stalkers. Keep in mind, the Twilight Kin Glade Stalkers wound everything on 4s, so because they all have the Hammer of Measured Force, effectively. So 12 attacks on 3s with Elite, and then wounding on 4s. Yeah, they just picked that thing up. And over here, we get another waiver as MacLeod and the regiment of Blade Dancers roll into my rabble, get them to 16 wounds, which is, that's a lot of damage there, and only manage a waiver. They are, I believe, a 1921, so that's another low nerve check for my opponent. So, more more tinder for the fire, I guess. And here's the end of turn shot. So things are looking a little dicey for the Twilight Kin, but goblins are known to just crumble under pressure. So we'll have to see what their turn turns up, and let's get to it. So first off, yeah, I just disengage and walk away with the horde of rabble who are wavered. So they go 3.5 inches back. Then I turn to, this is a little weird one. Anyway, I just turn around all the war trombones again and go, yep, we have a new target acquired. So we're going to shoot at these blade dancers, try to remove them. Grony, of course, runs away from Lathael because I don't want anything to do with that. And of course, the Wingit just stays over here, just making sure that Mickey's as far away as possible. So off here on the what remains of the right, we have the regiment with the Helm of the Ram, which of course gives +1 thunder. So we're going to walk in here. These guys do have defense 3, so it doesn't do anything here. But still, we're going to walk in. We've got 14 attacks, exploding 6s, wounding on 2s, and then we have Gorp going into the side. So hindered in this case, but still wounding on 2s because of their Crush 1. So it's going to be 5 attacks on 5s with exploding 6s. And then you can see the big rock throwers. They don't have any targets because all these elves just keep falling or being too short for me to shoot at. So, I just turn to face. And with all of my shooting, I do also have a lightning bolt, although I'll probably go for a host shadow beast onto Gorp instead. We fire into the regiment of blade dancers. We kill them off without needing the lightning bolt, or we get them to double 1 town, I believe, without needing the lightning bolt. And then so I did go for Gorp here. I got, I think, 2 or 3 with that host shadow beast, so not the strongest one, but didn't need it. So picked up the regiment of Gladestalkers. They're all gone. And here is the end of turn 4. You can see we have the horde of rabble right here with a loot token, but there's only the 2 very powerful Twilight Kin characters left on the table to fight me. So let's see what they do with their turn 5. So Twilight Kin turn 5. We start with Lathael. She fires a fireball this time, I believe, at Gorp, onto Grony, managing to kill her off pretty easily. And then, Mikhail charges into my wounded horde and kills them off because Mickey is so fine. So let's see what turn 5 looks like for the goblins. This is the end of turn 5 for the Twilight Kin. So the goblin turn 5. Yeah, we're just going to turn everything to shoot down Mikhail because Lathael is very dangerous, but not able to affect too much with her fireball at this point in the game, while Mickey could still really, really throw out some pain and disrupt my efforts. But I have made it impossible for my opponent to win because I've gone, actually we'll see it in the next one, I think. Yeah, so right here I have almost gone to the board edge with this Wingit with a loot token, and then over here I'm going to the board edge with these spiders with a loot token to make sure that I always have one. It's impossible for my opponent to pick it up, especially if I kill Mickey here. So let's see if I can. Yeah, this is just showing everything's shooting. I also brought Gorp over here because Gorp has a short bow, so why not? And we fire into Mickey, do manage to pick them up, so that is going to be the end of turn 5 for the goblins. Mickey's gone. It is just Lathael. It is literally impossible for my opponent to win, but they will take the turn to do some shooting, which I'm not sure I grabbed a picture of. I did not. So yeah, Lathael decides to come over here. I believe she shoots at a... maybe she just went for broke, right, and goes for the big fireball, right? Kill off this horde. But doesn't manage it. And then on my turn, I shoot at her and kill her off. So it is actually a complete table wipe for my opponent, but they could have still, maintained some points. Like Lathael could just run off, right? It's fine, because it was impossible for her to win. So anyway, let's go into conclusions and list discussion. So first off with the conclusions, yeah, I definitely needed to spend a bit more time looking at my units. There's just a lot in Clash 22, and I'm building a lot of different armies all at the same time. So I just, stuff falls between the cracks, right? Like that whole beast thing on the king on Fleabag. But in the game itself, I did make several mistakes. First off, goblins are pretty fragile. I've been running, a lot of tougher armies and like Ratkin hordes where I don't really care the kind of damage you throw out. So I do need to be more careful about that. because those, you know, those cab units are really powerful but very fragile. And next up, I did bring everything, and then, I'm sorry, I need to pay a bit more attention to my flanks again. It's stuff like that that falls through the cracks as well when you're trying new lists, because you focus on something too strongly. And like, I was really focused on getting the aura for the slasher up, and not focused as much on what was really important, which was making sure that my main combat unit had that aura and that the slasher wasn't going to get flanked, right? But thankfully, due to dice, it stayed with me, so it was fine. Let's talk a little bit about the lists. My opponent's Twilight Kin first. At 2,300 points, having 12 units is a little anemic, especially because several are troops, right? So I would say about this, I think Lathael is an always. I think she's really strong, obviously. And I do like the crew of the Black Hydra. I think this is a really cool formation, and I think that they have a natural synergy together that's really good. Where I would draw points away, unfortunately, Mickey has 6 attacks, I guess, but still. I would draw them from Mikhail. Mikhail I really like, 230 points I think is fair, but you can't bring like everything, especially in an elf list. You have to start making choices. So I'd probably drop Mickey and use those points to bring some units, right? So probably some gargoyles for the Abyssal Horsemen, and, you know, maybe another unit here or there, maybe another hero if you want. But you already have 2 Inspire, right? And you don't really need a third. I mean, a third would be nice, but you don't need it. So you could swap in like another crone if you want, I think. But anyway, that's what I would do. I think Mickey's just a little too expensive for this list archetype. For the other stuff, I think the Shadow Hulk, really interesting. It is a -20 unit, of course, with stealthy, so I think it's really cool. You know, melee 3, defense 5 is just a really good unit, but it is 220 points as well. And this list is not really I don't think it really wants to try to slug it out so much, because it's, you know, the Gladestalkers and the Horsemen and all that. Speaking of the Horsemen, I don't like Potion of the Caterpillar or J-Boots on units like this. I think it is a common mistake. And it's not, you know, it's not objectively a mistake. It's just, in my play opinion, it's wasted potential to not just put offensive items here, because I'd much rather have, and keep in mind, I'm trying to, you know, stay in these point values, right? But I'd much rather this be elite and then this be +1 thunder than some sort of terrain mitigation. I just don't think it's that important. I think you just stay away from the terrain, and then if you're playing in an area with a lot of terrain, you can start putting these items onto them. But as it is, I don't think it's that important, especially because you have the Gladestalkers to hold it up. So yeah, I like a lot of the individual elements of this list. I do find Twilight Kin still difficult to build for, just because they have so many cool toys, but you can't really afford to bring them en masse, right? You kind of have to pick a lane. So I'm looking at this and going, it's a little confused, right? So maybe drop the Shadow Hulks down to 1 Shadow Hulk. You can bring Butchers instead. Like, that'd work pretty well. So anyway, that's enough about the Twilight Kin. On to the Goblins. So yeah, this list is fun. It's not as good as my Ratkin list. I'll just start with that. But it is similar to it, and it is fairly interesting. I do really like, obviously, Rabble are great. You know, everyone knows that. The new Fleabag Riders, I think, are pretty good, because they're 10-12 for the troop, 13-15 for the regiments, which is a pretty good nerf, because they used to be 9-11 and 12-14, which was terrible. So yeah, they're speed 10. They're just really, really solid. Especially, I like the slasher piece of tech. You don't need to bring this. This is probably where I would attack to drop points, right? Because that's 225. I could drop that out. The Fleabag Riders don't necessarily need it, and bring something else. I just don't know what I would bring. The Wingets, I think, did fairly well, even with their heavily reduced profile here. Like -2/-2 nerve is a lot, but I do think they are probably still worth it, even at 11-13. And I do think the melee versions, if you're someone that does not like allies, because you could always just bring allies and get a Pegasus in here if you wanted something like that, it's pretty good. You know, 5 attacks. It could roll around with your Fleabag Riders, with your Chariots, whatever you want. So I think both versions are good. I'll probably have to mess around with the melee sometime soon. And The rest of it, though, like, Grony is absurd. Even my Grony only got 1 charge, spent the entire game just getting wavered, and I was still sitting there going, but you have to shoot at them, right? Grony is way too strong to let them go. Like, just look at that profile. It's insane. So really strong. I liked Grup. I thought she was fun. And then, of course, Gorp is really cool. Scythe of the Harvester is a natural one. Although if you're bringing a Bangit, you're probably going to put the Scythe there because it's just Rampage D3 period. So the Scythe will give you more grenades. The last thing I'll talk about is the Wiz. I just brought all the things on the Wiz to see which I really liked. But the Crown of the Wizard King, this is a cool ability, unnecessary for, I think, when you're just going to do a Host Shadow Beast play. Although it is probably best, I think, on a Host Shadow Beast play, right? Because Host Shadow Beast often, like when you're running flyers, or in this case just a speed 10 cav as well, often outranges you, right? The Wiz. So it's pretty good to be range 18, but I do not need knowledgeable. Host Shadow Beast 6 would have been fine. And in the end, I probably just need an inspiring there. So I'll probably make that change in the future. But otherwise, I thought it was really fun. I want the Jairus pendant. Obviously, I spent the entire game wavered. Would have been really good to be Headstrong 3, right? But otherwise, really fun. Hope you guys liked it. And until next time, bye.